diseconomies of scale. After this, when your average total cost starts to rise up, this is known as diseconomies of scale. Any confusion so far? Anything that's not clear, anything you want to ask me, right? So this is what economies of scale is. Now, within economies of scale, there are two classifications. Now, either the cost is decreasing because of firms' own reasons. I repeat myself. Either this decrease in cost of production is happening because of companies' own growth, because the company is growing and that's why your average cost is decreasing. That's known as internal economies of scale. So either it would be due to internal economies of scale or external economies of scale, right? And we'll talk about these, right? Okay, now think about the students. What is internal and what is external? Internal economies of scale, as I just explained you, is when there's reduction in the average cost of a business due to increase in business size, decrease in average cost of the business cost due to increase in business size, due to increase in due to increase in business size, right? And the business grows itself. Exactly. When the business is growing itself and that causes reduction in the average cost of the business, that is internal economies of scale. On the other hand, external economies of scale is, it's not due to business growing in size, but it is due to increase in the size of the industry. What is industry? Industry is collection of firms that produce the same type of product, right? Decrease in average cost of the business due to increase in the size of the industry in which the business is operating. Decrease in the average cost, decrease in the average cost of a business due to increase in the size of the industry. Is this making sense? Now, I'll give you some examples and then you'll better able to understand. Due to increase in of the industry. Okay, now students, have a look at this. Now this being said, have a look at this. So for the internal economies of scale, if you remember, we talked about all these different reasons like bulk buying economies, right? So when you are buying, when you're expanding, internal I'm talking about right now, right? Right, when the business is growing in size, they produce more output, and to produce more output, they need more raw materials. So they buy in bulk. When they buy in bulk, per unit, per unit cost is low, right? So that is one thing, right? Another thing is marketing economies of scale. So when you are growing in size, so you market a larger quantity of, you market a larger quantity of goods, and per unit marketing cost decreases. Then another reason was managerial economies of scale. So you can hire more experts when you're growing in size. So managerial economies of scale. Then you have technical economies of scale. Then you have financial economies of scale. Then you have risk bearing economies of scale. So there are a lot of different reasons that cause internal economies of scale. So far, I've been explaining you internal economies of scale: technical, financial, and risk bearing economies, right? Financial and risk bearing economies, right? So these are all the reasons that cause internal economies of scale. As far as the external economies of scale, exactly, that's correct, right? As far as the external economies of scale is concerned, students, now listen to this carefully. In that case, what happens that when the industry grows in size, what the case study was also talking about, what happens? Like if all tech companies are located in Silicon Valley, California, USA, right? What will that do? That will increase the supply of skilled labor. That will increase the supply of skilled labor. Now, anyone who's passionate about technology, anyone who wants to work in technology would know that they would want to go to Silicon Valley and work over there and all that stuff, right? Within USA and even outside USA, people go to Silicon Valley to work in tech companies. Similarly, people who are passionate about finance, they would know that New York, London, Hong Kong, these are the places where they can go, right? So transportation cost would be less, exactly. Less transportation cost, more Support firms build up, less transportation, so everything is close by, right? Uh, Transportation cost, which this case study is also talking about, right? More support firms. Do you understand what support firms are? Right? So support firms are companies that are providing support, right? Now, for a tech company, you need to have, let's say, hardware as well. So think about this. If Amazon, Google, and all these companies are located over there, you need also hardware, right? So hardware would include, setting up servers where data is recorded, stored, and all that stuff, right? Similarly, making faster processors which are used in the laptop so that they can, more quickly pick up and process things on the laptop and so on and so forth, right? So, and the list goes on. So these are all the reasons. More skilled, more supply of skilled workforce, more supply of skilled workforce, and so on and so forth. So these are all the reasons that will help you get external economies of scale. So what you're supposed to do in this question, let's look at this one more time. It was 5 marks. Use the information to explain how external economies of scale develop. So first of all, you give the definition that external economies of scale is the reduction in average cost when there is increase in the size of the industry. When there is increase in the size of the industry, that is your external economies of scale. After you have explained this, then you will give some examples, right? Then you will give some examples, right? That I just told you that there will be less transportation cost, there will be more supply of skilled workforce, there will be more support firms, and so on and so forth. And after that, it said that you have to draw a graph. Now, whatever graph you are expected to draw, let me tell you. Now, think about this. So, internal economies, I've already explained you that when a company is growing in size, when you're moving on the right hand side of the x-axis, your average total cost decrease, right? In the case of external economies of scale, your entire ATC curve will shift downwards, right? So let's say if originally this was your ATC, right? And this was your output, right? So output is still staying the same, right? Because there is obviously not internal, but this is external. So this was the original, ATC curve of the firm. Now, when there is external economies of scale taking place, that because of industry, your average cost is decreasing, so your entire ATC will shift downwards to a lower level. So entire ATC will shift down to the lower level from ATC 1 to ATC 2, and that is how you show it on the graph. Right, exactly, absolutely, that's correct. Right? Is it simple? So this is all what you were supposed to explain in this 5 marks question. Right? There is a fall in the demand for the product of a geographically concentrated industry, right? Analyze the economic implications of this for the area where the industry is located. Okay, now what do you think? Students, firstly tell me what the question is asking for and then answer this question. So the question is very simple and straightforward. The question is saying there is a fall in the demand for the product of a geographically concentrated industry. Geographically concentrated industry means that this industry is located in one particular area, right? So if I have to give you some examples, Sialkot, you must have heard about Sialkot, right? So Sialkot is one city in Pakistan which specializes in sports equipment, right? Faisalabad is one city in Pakistan that specializes in textile industry. And recently, Pakistan textile industry, you must have heard from me and from other places that Pakistan's textile industry is really struggling because because of a lot of different things, and a lot of our orders are not. A lot of our orders are moving to other countries like Bangladesh and India and so on and so forth, right? So if, let's say, Faisalabad industry in Pakistan is not doing that great, they are not getting a lot of orders, they don't have a lot of demand, then how would that affect that area? Demand for labor will fall, first of all, very first impact, very good, right? So demand for labor will fall. A lot of people who are working in textile industry, who produce things, who work as managers, who work as accountants, and all that stuff, right? So the unemployment in that city will increase drastically. Unemployment in Faisalabad will drastically increase because obviously that industry is shrinking, right? And they might even be doing downsizing and so on, right? Okay, great. So that's one thing. What else? What else? What about what about the people when they start leaving the area. So what was the case study talking about? Do you remember? So when unemployment rose in Detroit, what will people do when there's very high unemployment in the city? What will people do? Will they still stay in the city or will they leave? What do you think? When unemployment has increased because the industry has collapsed or declined, they start leaving. Exactly. So when they start leaving, just imagine what happens. There is no more demand for property. Previously people used to rent houses, people were living there, people used to buy food and all that stuff. Now when they start leaving, the demand for property will decrease, the rent rates and charges will start to decrease, and other services demand will decrease, like restaurants and shopping malls, because people, the number of population in that right now, Faisalabad is third, third most populated city of Pakistan. On first we have Karachi, then we have Lahore, then we have Faisalabad, and then we have Rawalpindi and Islamabad combined, right? So this is what it is. Are you getting me? Right? So this is what it will do. So that's another challenge. Very good. Excellent. Anything else coming to your mind? Right? So students, these are all the problems that you will face. Right, sure. Right? So there's a fall in demand for a product of geographically concentrated industry. Analyze the economic implication of this area when where the industry is located. So we talked about unemployment. When due to unemployment, people start leaving, the demand for property will decrease, the rent prices will fall, then the demand for other goods and services will decrease because now the population is less, so less demand for restaurants, less demand for shopping malls, less demand for all these different things, right? So their prices will most probably also decrease, right? This being said, right, what else? Right, right. So ideally three with explanation, because this is how it works. One mark is for identification and one mark is for explanation, right? So for 6 marks, you have to write 3 explained points. Does it make sense? Right? Okay. Now, the last question says, consider how the negative externalities from concentrated industrial production can be reduced, right? So how can negative externalities from concentrated industrial production can be reduced? What do you think? You remember we talked about externalities in a lot of detail, right? So externalities, first of all, you need to explain what externalities are, right? So externality is any thing that has a negative effect on the third party. If you think about production, so what can be some production externalities? Air pollution, land pollution, the wastage that is dumped, on vacant plots and all that stuff, right? So the case study was talking about the iron industry somewhere. Let me quickly go and see. It did talk about something of the pollution, right? Just a second. Yeah, 7 of the 10 most polluted cities in China are in Hebei province, the center of iron and steel industry, right? This concentration has caused large amount of air, water, and land pollution. The competing demand for a limited number of workers have also led to wage increases. Okay. Now, this being said, so first of all, you'll explain what externalities, and negative effect on the third party. And that can include air pollution, noise pollution, land pollution, water pollution, all these different things, right? When externalities happen, so we looked at the graph as part of our syllabus, right? Where what happens is, think about this. So for the externalities graph, on the y-axis, you have price and cost. So you have price slash cost on the y-axis, right? And on the x-axis, you have quantity of that good, right? Okay. Now, if you remember, we made the normal downward sloping marginal private benefit, right? So marginal private benefit is the benefit that the person directly involved in something gets. So that is marginal private benefit, and upward sloping will be marginal private cost, right? So where the marginal private benefit and private cost intersect, that is where the firm will produce. That is where the market will produce. So I'll write this down as QM, because QM meaning the quantity that the market will produce. Is this simple, students? Is this simple so far? Okay. Now think about this. Since they're also causing pollution, so marginal social cost is higher than marginal private cost, right? So marginal social cost is higher than this, right? Are you getting me? So This means that society should have, and social benefit is the same because there is no external benefit. So private benefit and social benefit is the same. But marginal social cost is higher than marginal private cost. Why? Because there is also pollution taking place in the economy, right? Okay, now with that happening, ideally the society should have produced at QS. Ideally, the society should have produced at QS. Yes or no? Am I making sense? Right? And drawn to the left. Exactly. Perfect, right? Now, this is the situation. So you can see for yourself, market is producing more, QM is higher, and QS, which is socially desirable, is less. Now, what can the government do in this case? Students, what can the government do in this case? There's overconsumption taking place. Yes, that's correct, Isha. Now, what will the government do to stop that? Exactly. So government impose a tax. When government impose a tax, what happens? So when tax is imposed, the cost of production increases, your supply curve, like marginal private benefit cost, shifts leftwards, it goes over here, and your consumption will drop down from QM to QS. Your consumption will drop down from QM to QS. Are you getting me? Right? Students, that's the thing. That's what you need to understand, right? And the prices will also go up, which means that it will discourage people to consume more. So that's one way of dealing with externality. Are there any other solutions? Are there any other ways that you can deal with externalities? How can the government deal with externalities in some other way? Uh, can be reduced, right? Government can charge fines and penalties. So if they see, if the government can see, that there is some violation of environmental law, like, they are disposing of their waste in the open area, or they are disposing their waste in water, and so on and so forth, then the government can, impose fines and penalties, rules, regulation, and pollution permits. Exactly. Very good. Perfect. So for air pollution, you can set a limit on how much emissions you can make during one day or during 1 week or whatever, right? Yeah. And government has tools to monitor that how much are the emissions that your factory is making, how much pollution that is causing. Similarly, rules and regulations can include things like how you have to have proper equipment to dispose of your waste material. You can't dump it in water, you can't dump it on a land, you can't do stuff like that. And still, if government thinks that there is some sort of externality taking place, then the government can apply this concept, as we've seen, to impose taxes. So with higher cost of production, production will automatically decrease, and that is what the government can do, right? So these are all the ways through which you can control pollution. Uh, I mean, think about it. That's a good question. That's a good question, Nisha. So if you have something, right? So if you have something specifically mentioned in the case study, right? In this case, you could tell that there is not a lot of, there's not a lot of information in the case study that you can use, right? So then you do not need to worry. But otherwise, if there is any information that you can use, then yeah, why not? Right? So this is what you have to. But most of the time, you'll see that there won't be much information. But if there is anything helpful, then you can. Right? Good. Okay. So students, we stop here today. Tomorrow we'll continue from here. Tomorrow we can do an essay question, case study, whatever you want me to do. Now A2 economics, sorry, AS economics class is waiting for me. I'll see you tomorrow. Most probably we will have the class at the same time, like we had it today, 6:30 to 7:30, but I will confirm you again, right? Okay. So I'll see you tomorrow. Take care and have a good night. Allah Hafiz. And if there are any particular questions that you're having problem with, do send me those.